The end of my investigations, I think that may have been late 2001, and I was arrested in March 2002. But what happened, I'm told, is that NASA and the various military establishments that I was in shared information, which I think these bodies should do more often, and don't do it enough, just like law enforcement. And I realised that whoever had been in the systems was using the same tools, the same program, the same method of entry. And I think NASA knew it was from a United Kingdom IP address. And this is the thing, I wasn't a professional hacker, so I wasn't always covering my tracks and stuff or thinking properly. I was, being in time zones when people were still working in the offices and such. So yeah, that's...
So have you, okay, Donna Ware, I guess you heard her testimony or saw her testimony somewhere. Was it on the web, or how'd you come across?
Yeah, the Disclosure Project website, their 2001 National Press Conference.
Oh, I see. And has she ever gotten in contact with you at all?
No.
No. But she must know that there was...
Has,
okay.
so.
Huh. And you've actually been interviewed by a number of publications, reputable establishments, so-called, such as the BBC. Is this right?
Yeah, BBC, Channel 4, Channel 5, ITV.
And the
BBC
Guardian.
World Service, the Guardian.
Financial Times.
Yeah, the FT. I've been in the Metro, the Standard, the Daily Mail. Want me at the moment. In fact, I've yet to return his call.
Okay, and just recently, I guess, by Linda Moulton Howe.
Yeah.
Okay, for Coast to Coast, or possibly for Coast to Coast at some point.
Yeah, Earth, Mars, and Dreamland.
For her own website. Okay. Yeah, just wondering, because I know that your cause is kind of a cause célèbre here in the UK, but it's not really getting the kind of coverage that it deserves in the United States at this point. Isn't that right?
Yeah, in my view, there's a deliberate news blackout over there. I've only had contact from, I think it's CNN and none of the other news networks. Because I think there seem to be two factions in the US military and government. One of them is hugely embarrassed by what you could term failings in security. No firewalls, no passwords, no security, basically. Especially since 9/11, security should be a lot more strong. And the other faction seems to want it all out in the open and to have a big show trial, a big circus trial, and say this is what happens to hackers.
Oh, I see. To use you as a scapegoat kind of person. Well, that sounds unfair, and it sounds like, just from the most obvious level is that why didn't they just hire you, since you basically pointed out a real hole in the system. They could have brought you on board. It sounds like you're not totally against security, computer security.
No, not at all.
Uh-huh.
And I've got great respect for law enforcement agencies and military agencies, when they're thinking correctly. But I think these days they know I'm in complete disagreement with years and years of not American foreign policy. I hate when people say, it's American this, American that. It's not the American people. It's just you've been the victims of a succession of very bad governments with very short-termism outlook. So I think they know that I wouldn't work for them.
Uh-huh. And how does the British government actually treating you, or have you had any interactions with members of the British government?
Well, obviously, I write to MPs and that sort of thing. But I am very disappointed when you think the first thing the British government did with this was hand it over on a plate to the American government. All the evidence was in London. My hard drive was in London. I was in London.
Uh-huh.
I'd made a full and frank admission to all the unauthorised access. All the details were there. And at first the police here were quite friendly. They said, you may get 6 months of community service, just helping the community at large, etc. But when they went over to America and had meetings with the Office of Naval Intelligence, and I think possibly the Air Force Office of Special Investigations as well, they came back with a completely different attitude. Very, very heavy, very, very serious. And then you suddenly got all the headlines about criminal masterminds and all this rubbish.
Right. And isn't it true that you also sort of were inspired by War Games to some degree, the movie?
That's a kind of a misquote by John Monson.
Oh, okay.
I said I had seen that.
Right.
But I wasn't really inspired. What actually inspired me was The Hacker's Handbook by Hugo Cornwell. who is now Peter Sumner at the London School of Economics.
Oh, really?
That was the first hard information publication I've read. In fact, the first issue was banned by the UK government. It had to have a reprint and stuff taken out.
But now he's basically teaching, isn't that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he lectures in though.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting that you sort of got into this via someone who's, I guess you certainly could say, working for the establishment on some level, right? But he wrote a book about hacking. I mean, hacking is a way of finding out information. It's kind of slang for somebody who's an investigator, but maybe not liked or not appreciated by the powers that be, right?
Okay, yeah, like a journalist hacking away at the
typewriter. So, can you tell me what else you found? Because I know that you have something, has some information in regard to non-terrestrial officers. Is that right?
Yeah. There was an Excel spreadsheet, and the title was non-terrestrial officers. Then it had names, ranks. It wasn't a long list. Didn't even fill the whole screen, I think.
Well, could you just generally say how many? I mean, if you were to guess, are we talking 20, 50?
20. Maybe 30.
Did you notice if they were male or female by chance?
That I can't remember.
Okay. First names and last names?
Definitely ranks, but nothing to say, Army captain or Navy captain or...
so the designation wasn't there as far as which organization they worked for. Huh.
So, I mean, that was entitled Non-Terrestrial Officers, and obviously it's not little green men, so I was thinking, what force is this? And that phrase is nowhere to be found on a web or an official army documentation or anything. And the other thing was a list of ship-to-ship and fleet-to-fleet transfers. Bear in mind fleet-to-fleet, so multiple ships, of materials. And these ships weren't, US Navy ships. Again, I don't remember any of the names, but I remember at the time looking and trying to match up the names, and there wasn't anything that matched.
So, now this theoretically would have been pretty top secret information if indeed non-terrestrial is what it sounds to be, which is off-world, right?
Yeah. I mean, I gleaned from that information, I surmised that an off-planet sort of space marines is being formed. And if you actually look at DARPA, Defence Advanced Research and Projects Agency literature at the moment in the last few years, and a lot of the government space command stuff, it's all about space dominance. That is really is the final frontier. So I think it's natural for them to want to control space and be developing a space going forward in secret. But I think most likely using technology reverse engineered from ET.
To get out there, in other words.
Yeah, and also to be cloaked. I mean, otherwise, how many other governments would see this going on? So.